Welcome to Court of the Crane, where history meets the shadows of crime and justice. Usually we talk about the echoing halls of the Joseon dynasty, uncovering poisoners, traitors, and kings brought low. But tonight, our story comes not from centuries past, but from just a few years ago. It begins not in a palace, but in a modest apartment. A child lay hidden, unseen for months. And when the door finally opened, investigators uncovered not only death, but a family secret that shattered assumptions of who was a mother, who was a daughter, and who bore the responsibility. It also raises a haunting question. How many children remain hidden, unregistered, or abandoned? This is the case of the Gumi Apartment Child, a tragedy that unfolded behind closed doors, revealing unsettling truths about family, identity, and neglect. Before we proceed, all details come from court records, news reports, and public sources. Some elements remain disputed. Nothing here is intended to defame any living individual. All unproven theories are purely speculative, and they're not accusations. Out of respect for victims and in compliance with Korean law, we will use initials and ages only. Some details remain disputed. When we enter the realm of speculation, I will make that clear. And while this is a modern tragedy, it echoes systemic issues in Korea: hidden children, unregistered births, and family secrecy with life-altering consequences. True crime in Korea is often remembered through infamous names like Yoo Young-chul or the Hwasong serial murders. These cases shock the nation with their violence and scale. But sometimes, the most haunting stories aren't about mass killings or intricate conspiracies. They are about one child, one life extinguished, not by a dramatic scheme, but by silence, neglect, and choices made behind closed doors. Gumi, North Gyeongsang Province, February 2021. A landlord sought to reclaim an apartment. The tenant was nowhere to be found. Relatives from downstairs entered. Inside, they found silence. And within that silence, the body of a 3-year-old child, already mummified by time. Police initially described it as a case of abandonment, but DNA tests revealed something far stranger. The woman living upstairs, long believed to be the child's mother, was not. The DNA instead pointed to her downstairs neighbor, the child's own grandmother. What followed became one of the most puzzling family mysteries Korea has ever encountered. To understand how this tragedy came to pass, let's examine the facts as they were uncovered. In 2018, a baby girl was born in Gumi. Initially, she was assumed to be the daughter of a young woman, Kim, then in her early 20s. Kim lived in her mother's apartment off and on, but she was often away. By early 2021, after months of silence, relatives discovered the child's body. Early reporting framed this as a young mother abandoning her daughter. Kim was arrested and charged. Then DNA testing revealed something extraordinary. The child was not Kim's daughter. Her biological mother was Suk, Kim's own mother. This inverted the family roles. The grandmother was the mother, and the daughter had been raising her half-sister. The revelation shocked the public, and it complicated legal proceedings. Speculation suggested that Suk may have concealed her pregnancy, possibly to avoid social stigma, passing the child off as Kim's. Others proposed deliberate family arrangements to mask the child's origins. The truth remains murky, but the secrecy directly contributed to the child's vulnerability. The DNA revelation not only stunned investigators, but it also set the stage for a complex legal battle. If Kim wasn't the biological mother, why had she been caring for the child? Prosecutors theorized that in March or April 2018, shortly after birth, Sook may have secretly switched the infants, placing her own baby in Kim's care. Evidence was scant. There was no CCTV, no witnesses, no hospital irregularities documented. Items like ID anklets and umbilical clamps were presented in court, but judges ruled they did not establish method or motive. Speculative reporting suggested family tension, inheritance motives, or shame surrounding childbirth. But courts repeatedly emphasized speculation alone cannot convict. The Supreme Court eventually vacated Sook's conviction for the alleged switch, highlighting the limits of circumstantial evidence. The courtroom battles were complex. Kim, the upstairs resident, faced straightforward charges. She had left the child alone for months. Courts held her responsible for the child's death. Sook, the downstairs resident, faced allegations of infant switching, initially sentenced to 8 years for kidnapping. But the Supreme Court vacated the ruling in 2022 due to insufficient evidence. By February 2023, the retrial court concluded she could not be convicted of the swap. She was instead punished for attempting to conceal the child's death, a crime but far less severe than murder by omission. Korean law holds both biological and de facto caregivers are accountable for neglect. In this case, both women were found legally responsible, though the degrees of culpability differed. As the legal proceedings unfolded, a haunting question emerged. What became of the child Kim believed she gave birth to in 2018? No public records confirm the child's whereabouts. Some outlets speculated early death or maybe quiet adoption, but no proof exists. This unresolved absence is perhaps the most haunting element of the story. A sibling, a life lost in secrecy. One child was found. The other, if she exists, was never seen again. South Korea was stunned. Headlines focused on the sensational, an abandoned toddler, and a grandmother accused of secret motherhood. But the real tragedy was clear. A 3-year-old left to die alone. The DNA puzzle, alleged infant switch, and missing sibling remain contested. The certainty is the child's death. The public's reaction was swift and intense, leading to a broader conversation about parental responsibility, family secrecy, and the societal obligations toward vulnerable children. The Gumi case revealed not just a family's tragedy, but cracks in society itself. How does a child vanish for months without neighbors noticing? Should landlords, officials, or even relatives step in sooner when a home sits silent and locked? And what of the young mothers, the families in crisis, who conceal births out of fear or shame? What support do we truly offer them? These questions took on national urgency in 2023 when the Korean government reviewed birth registries and discovered more than 2,000 unregistered children. Some were living quietly in the shadows. Others had been abandoned. Some were already gone. It is not a new problem. From the meticulous census scrolls of Joseon to today's digital registries and biometric IDs, Korea has always wrestled with the question of who is counted and who is left invisible. Children hidden from the records can live in limbo, without names, without rights, without protection. The Gumi tragedy forces us to confront this truth. Secrecy does not protect children, it erases them. And whether in a dynasty's ledgers or a modern courtroom, the cost of that erasure is often measured in lives. The Gumi apartment case was not about conspiracies or palace intrigue. It was one of a child left alone, a crime born of silence. It was also a story of mistaken identities. Who is mother? Who is daughter? Confusion that shaped justice. From Joseon records to modern registries, Korea continues to wrestle with the question: who is counted and what happens when someone falls through the cracks. In Court of the Crane, we usually recount kings, queens, traitors, and poisoners. Sometimes, however, the most chilling tragedies happen not in palaces, but just upstairs, behind a door no one opens until it's too late. Thank you for joining me on this difficult journey. If you found this story meaningful, please remember to like, subscribe, and comment below. If there's a crime, historical or modern, that you'd like us to explore, let us know. Because in Korea, whether in Joseon's courts or today's registries, crime always leaves a shadow.